Okay. Let's make sure. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining today. This is our snarkOS engineering stand-up. As I had mentioned before on previous calls, we're still determining a regular meeting date for these calls. As of right now, they will continue to be ad hoc, but at least while we are working on the testnet and stabilizing things, we will use this call as sort of like an AMA session. So once again, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand or type it in the call's Q&A text channel. So maybe before I get started, I don't know if Alex or anybody else, if there's any just public service announcements you want to make real quick. If not, otherwise we can jump right into the questions.
Yeah, one public service announcement. I wrote it in testnet support, but don't try and mine multiple blocks from different addresses. We obviously have the KYC providers to try to prevent this. And I mentioned this in the channel, but we're not going low budget there. We're going to try and actually find the best KYC solution we can. Really, truly try and enforce that a single person is a single participant in the testnet. This especially goes for people in the top 100. Well, it goes for everyone, but if you're caught doing this, you won't get any rewards and they'll be redistributed to the rest of the community. That especially goes for the top 100. So if anyone in the top 100 is listening to this, if you think you're going to take the top 1 through 10 slots and we catch you, we're not giving you any rewards and you'll just give an airdrop to the community. So I guess they'll thank you for that. So if you want to give an airdrop to the community, go ahead and try that. But please don't, because honestly, there's again, this is an incentivized testnet. The primary purpose is for us to prepare for mainnet, to learn the lessons we need to learn about our system, to increase its security, to increase its performance. And then we're thankful, the reason the incentives exist is to get everyone to behave as they would on mainnet. But it is also important for us to, we want to make this, as inclusive as possible. And it's not fair to everyone else in the community if one person tries to game the system or farm it. So please don't. And the one other thing I need to put this in announcements, but it's going to come out today. If you are in the top 100, or sorry, in the top 10, and I think the cutoff we're going to make is at the 500 block mark. Once you've mined 500 blocks, if you want to receive rewards, you're going to need to register with us. I'll have instructions for how to do that, but we need to basically know who you are, and you need to reach out before the KYC period. So that's going to be another kind of additional rule. That should really only apply to the very top folks, but we want to make sure we know who those miners are. Okay, great, thanks. That's it.
Awesome. All right, so let me go to the next channel here. Okay, so SD asked, can you give some info on why proof of succinct work difficulty target is not met, expected, found, and happens?
Hey, CompUSD, nice to see you again. Hope everything is well here and on Ironfish or wherever else you're mining. Answer to your question is that's if you see that message, it's a good thing. It's a bug that you're seeing the message, and we're going to address that. But if you see that message, it means that your miner has received a block, verified it, and has started mining on top of it, and has mined it's done at least one iteration of the POSW, and then it's doing a second, which means that your miner is competitive, basically. So it means that everything's happening as it's supposed to. That message looks like an error, and it's not. We need it. It's supposed to be caught, and it's not clear why that's not being caught, but we're working on debugging that. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then somebody in here actually posted a thread from Discord on this, and the comment was from another community member named Nader, and they said, and maybe we can verify this. They said, "Hi everyone, I know that succinct work difficulty target is not met means I'm mining, but if the found number is 10,000x bigger than the expected number, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean my chance at the block is 1 in 10,000, or is it more like I will never succeed? Thanks."
So that I don't. Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that question. Thanks, Nader, for asking, but I'll find out. I think again, this is talking to Howard. The last I got from him was like, yeah, this is a bug, but like this is a good thing. So I'm not going to just pop off pretending like I know. So let me get you the right answer, and I'll get back to you.
Okay. And somebody asked, when will mining pool be ready? I guess maybe I can comment on this. So I know we're working on one internally. There's also been a few other people that have expressed interest in building some mining pools. So we're actively speaking with those people. I think from our perspective, right, we're gonna try to put out our own official one, but also having other mining pools available, I think only helps with these efforts. In terms of timeline, essentially for us, it's top of our list in terms of priority. So we're hoping that sometime next week at the latest. That's the goal, I would say, to try to get something out. But yeah, not sure if anybody else has any other comments on that from the team.
Yeah, no, I think the no updates, but I mean we have several parallel efforts running, and so as soon as possible is still the answer. So I don't want to give a specific date because I don't want to potentially create a situation where there's disappointment. But know that there's at least 5 parallel efforts going on, all of which we intend to release. And the Aleo mining pool will use one of those implementations, but the bottom line is we want to get this out as soon as possible.
Okay, as I understand, you plan to launch mainnet in Q1 2022. However, from what I can tell, the smart contract functionality is still under very active development. Is it possible you will go down the Cardano route and launch smart contracts later down the road?
It's much less possible for that, and it's more possible that I think if we get to be some point in early Q1, probably where we need to figure out whether or not what work needs to be done. But I think our intention is to ship a fully functional chain day one. Like we don't intend to ship something that is kind of purposely left with more to do. So that's the intent. So the target is Q1 2022. I think you should probably read that as the end of Q1. But I think there's a possibility that there could be delays if we feel that those features aren't ready.
Okay, somebody said, are you working on GPU implementation already? As far as I know, yes, we are working on something. And yeah, like I said, we want to have that out, somewhere around like halfway through the incentive period, but feel free, anybody else to comment as well.
Damon, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, we have an engineer that has a sample GPU implementation. However, we're also redirecting that engineer to work on another project right now that's more based on some of the APIs and interfaces that we need to be long-term successful for mainnet. We also are looking at other ways to do a GPU implementation as well. But also the GPU implementation that we have right now is a very basic one that only has a very minor improvement in speed and performance, and it is also very buggy. So we still have a lot of testing to do on our GPU implementation. But as soon as we have more information, we're going to definitely loop people in on how they can participate in that.
Yeah. So TLDR, we have something. It's not ready, but this is going to be a priority after we get the mining pool out. Is it only for Marlin Snark? What I need to do, actually, Anthony, remind me next time we do one of these to invite Aki, because I think it would be great for him to be here. So Aki is a researcher out of New York University who authored a paper called Proof of Necessary Work, upon which Proof of Succinct Work is based. The TLDR is both Marlin and Groth snarks reduced to a lot of the same underlying mathematical operations. Those basic operations are fast Fourier transforms and multiscalar multiplication. The MSM, the multiscalar multiplication parts, are very GPU friendly. They're very parallelizable. The fast Fourier transforms are much more serial in nature. The relative ratio of the MSMs to the FFTs kind of affects how good a GPU is at speeding up that specific snark. From our early investigations, it seems like we'll get more benefit out of accelerating the Groth 16 snark, which is the Coinbase transaction. And if you can, of course, create the Coinbase transaction faster, you can mine more. That's based on our initial investigation, but we're still doing more work there. And I'll invite Aki to come next time. He knows about 1,000 times more about this than me, and so that hopefully will be a more satisfying answer to your question.
Yeah, and then the same person asks, okay, so is it only for the Marlin snark, the GPU implementation? And then, okay, Groth 16 already has GPU implementation, they said.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's great to know. So maybe, I guess I don't know where it is, but yeah, if you want to kind of link, if you want to link to an implementation, that'd be great. Maybe we just have to apply it to our Coinbase transaction.
Okay. Okay, Grin. Yeah, let's just try to keep the comments professional here. Yeah, thank you. All right. Somebody else asked, so, okay, and I think Alex, you answered this. Mine 500, do you mean before or after 18,000 height? And yeah, Alex, you said after only. Okay, so somebody else said, I know it's a competition to mine right now, but I'm sorry. Okay, I know it is a competition to mine right now, but can you cultivate a culture of sharing what those with successful setups are actually doing, considering all else is constant, i.e. meeting the minimum requirements?
Yes. I definitely want what is successful to percolate throughout the community. And we're not running any miners. As someone else pointed out already in the question, like there's a lot of parts to Aleo. There's the blockchain part, which is kind of a focus right now. There's the whole Zexi model, which is the compute part. There's Leo, the programming language. And there's all the other bells and whistles on top of that. So, and we're a team of, I think, full-time, I think around 25, and we have about 10 contractors working too. So there's a lot going on. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to clearly implement the most competitive miner out the gate. And people who did have time and effort and wanted to spend the time and resources to figure out what would be really successful did it. And that was something that we didn't expect. That said, it is in our interest and I say as a team, but I really mean as a network. I think this is us, not just us, the royal we, not like us, the team. We want our network to be secure at launch. That means a couple of things. That means we do want the infrastructure to exist to enable pooling, to enable relatively large industrial scale operations to run on the network. I believe that is better for security because investment in capital, it can't be recouped many times. And so, those actors are not as incentivized to just attack the network as someone would be potentially if it's just a pure GPU, like if it's, if it's just a vanilla GPU proof of work coin. We've seen plenty of instances where, you can rent enough hash power to 51% attack the network. So we want to kind of create the infrastructure and we want to create the strong incentives there to bring on the big players. However, we want to push the floor up. We don't want to make it so easy for the big players to run away with it that it's just the thing's just a runaway game. We want there to be enough pressure from the bottom up that the ecosystem remains competitive. And again, all of this is driving at network security, and really the way we measure that is cumulative chain weight. So right now, I think there's an imbalance between the power of the biggest miners and the power of the smallest. I don't think I'm saying anything that is controversial in this audience. and this is one of the reasons why we want to help people pool resources. This is one of the reasons why we want to get the GPU implementation out there to get that, kind of even the playing field there. Even when we do that, I'm sure there will still be ways to get an advantage if you spend the time and effort and capital. And that's just inherently, there's always going to be an asymmetry between what we, the team, release and between what someone who's a professional who's full-time focused on this is going to be able to come up with. That's again, I think that's we'd argue it's fortunate or unfortunate. I think it's sort of how the way proof of work incentives are designed. But again, we do want to make sure that it's not so out of whack that it results in an insecure network from another standpoint. It's kind of a long rant. I don't actually know if I answered any question, but hopefully that sheds light. Basically, we're trying to help everybody get more competitive here. I think it's in our interest. So pause there.
Then, yeah, somebody else commented on the proof of synced work difficulty target. They said, considering that target is not met as a ePrint line, yeah, I think it's just a leftover of a debug message and not meant to be printed in current code. That's useful information for sure. We said, hey guys, is it okay to run miner and client on the same IP address? I think Damon and Fabian have been answering this. So Damon said, my understanding is that each instance of the running software binds to 0.0.0.0, which is all interfaces on the host. So the moment you attempt to start the second instance, you will get an address already in use error. And then Fabian said, yes, it should be fine as long as you don't try to use the default port 4132 for both at the same time.
Yeah. And we know there's a bug, by the way, here. So I know, like, my client, for example, just kind of died, and I restarted it, and I got, that the address, there's an address already running in the same from the same machine, and I think there's something going on with the cleanup for the WebSockets. And actually, maybe this is a good point to maybe pause. So I think let's pause the Q&A just briefly, but I actually want to pass it over to Lukasz and Niklas, who are both here, who are engineers working on snarkOS, and they've got some improvements kind of lined up. And maybe I just want to give each of them a couple minutes to talk about what they're working on, and the improvements that they're currently focused on. So you guys have the benefit of knowing that. Lukasz or Niklas, do either one of you want to just start?
I mean, it's a separate issue, the fact that you can start a client and a miner on the same machine, and whether everything is fully shut down. There's an open issue for the shutdown problems, and then a PR that is pending that is addressing those issues, hopefully fully now. But other than that, yeah, the answer is if you specify a different port, you can run multiple clients on the same machine.
Yeah, and I guess, so I know this is like the one issue, but Lukasz, do you want to, I know there's some other stuff you've been working on too with regards to performance of the nodes. Do you want to just kind of briefly summarize and share with the community what that is?
There is definitely some room for improvement in terms of how peering works, in terms of how the blocks are propagated. Some people also were mentioning that the block spamming anti-spamming measure is too strict, and I think that it is, that it could be made less aggressive. There's like 3 pending PRs that it would be nice to merge soon. I've been testing them locally and haven't encountered issues with them. There's one that is performance oriented, one that is targeting that shutdown issue, and one that is targeting the issue where you might have difficulty connecting to the initial sync nodes.
Thanks, Niklas. Anything to add?
Nothing much. Lukasz covered most of it. I mean, we're obviously focusing on improving peering and syncing, and things surrounding that to improve the connectivity of the network, right, and reduce those bottlenecks that people have been seeing. As for me, some of the more specific work that I've been doing is trying to increase visibility into the network by building a network-based crawler. That's a work in progress. There's still ways to go, but getting there slowly. And just general improvements surrounding peering I took a look again at the beacon and sync provider split. The code is set up to support that, but Howard never implemented it, so we have to do some work there as well. But in general, yeah, just improving peering and syncing.
Thanks. Yes, well, we're already on a roll. Fabian, do you want to share anything about what you and Fabiano have been working on that may be relevant for the community? If not, no worries.
Yeah, we do have some updates. We've been looking at possibly adding infrastructure and kind of figuring out how to deploy more infrastructure to improve the speed and quality of the network, and also working with Nicholas with regards to having more visibility into the network and implementing a crawler.
Awesome, thanks. Cool. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of a sense of what's going on. The work is all on in the repo. So for folks who are interested, you want to see what the latest thing going on is. You want to pull down those PRs and build and try it yourself. We welcome you to. If you notice any issues or bugs, encourage you to contribute to this open source project. So anyway, thank you guys for sharing an update. Anthony, I'm happy to run through more questions if we want to.
Okay. So somebody had two questions. The first is, why can't the node stay in sync all the time, and why can't the performance of the CPU be fully utilized? For my non-technical self, I just want my device performance to be fully utilized. It doesn't matter if I can't get out of the block.
I've taken a stab at answering this a few times, but maybe Lukash and Nicholas, you have maybe from your perspective, and I don't know if you guys, maybe you can say why that the CPU isn't always fully utilized when the miner is running. If you have thoughts, maybe you can share them.
Yeah, today I posted a bit of an explanation on why this is not a trivial thing and not something that can be really set to defaults that will be applicable to every possible configuration. So the ones that are in place are some safe defaults, but you are free to tinker with them and dedicate more cores to the thread pool that is dedicated to mining. You're free to do so, although if you dedicate too many, your node could become unresponsive in the network because all the resources are shared. The same with running multiple clients or miners on the same machine. They will be just competing for those resources, especially when they are all trying to mine. So you're free to try to fine-tune it to your specific setup, but it's not really possible to have defaults that will work for everyone and enable full CPU utilization for every possible configuration, and also to still be able to remain responsive in the network while dedicating full 100% of CPU to mining.
And I guess just to piggyback on that, I know you guys have heard from me on this a few times, but the block times in this network are fast, and it's a little more expensive to verify block headers here than it is in something like Ethereum or Bitcoin. And the risk you take is if you dedicate more threads towards mining and you're not active enough with your networking, with the networking side, with getting new blocks, verifying them, connecting to peers. There's a risk you end up off on a fork, and then you just have mined an orphan. That if people start doing that in mass, then we have a forking problem. This is why the defaults are set the way that they are, is to encourage, basically to kind of, in some sense, limit the miner to a safe default level, so as to prevent forks. And I think that the solution to this, this kind of goes back to the mining pool thing. I think the solution to this is to really separate client and the miner, and have them work in tandem. So a client basically sits on the network, listens to everything that's going on, gets all that, gets the latest block, creates a block template, passes that block template to the miner that only mines. All they do is proof of succinct work. In that scenario, I think it will be much easier to fully utilize your hardware, because you're not trying to balance between many tasks. You're only trying to do one task well. So that's one other reason that we feel like the mining pool, the infrastructure will be really important. Because whether or not you actually run a pool of it's like a mining pool where thousands of people could join. You could even use this to set up your own small pool with a few servers, and I still think it would be much more efficient to do it this way. So I don't know if that was maybe an overkill answer to your question. Can we create a channel for people who know technology and people who don't know? Have someone answer questions. Sure. I think, well, maybe I'll ask you a question. Which of those do we not have? I think we're mostly catering to people who know technology, but if we need to, create a separate channel to kind of raise it up a little bit higher in terms of the level of abstraction, happy to do that. So you just tell me, what direction do we need to go, up or down? Yeah, more than happy to create another channel if you think it'd be useful.
Yeah, and on that, I think, I actually just had a discussion today with some of our design team. I think we're going to be trying to restructure the Discord. So we're actively working on restructuring some things in a test server so that we don't start, messing around with the current server that everybody's actively participating in. So hopefully moving forward, we'll have more effective ways to also answer questions for people. So and then in terms of, I know you mentioned Google Translate here, I guess for people that aren't as fluent in English, basically, I think the general idea here is we're going to try to partner with independent Telegram groups and other channels that have some really stellar community members running them, and basically, direct people to those channels as well, since we're sort of cross-pollinating information here. So it should be something else to look out for if it's difficult for you to fully understand all the English. Okay, so somebody said, is there any information about the guys who are mining blocks top 1 to 5? They have a lot of mining power or using some non-effective points of syncing, peering, block spamming. Need to know it because trying to make something like a pool.
So I know for a fact that one of those teams is using GPUs. So that I know there is specialized hardware being run on the network. I've confirmed that. We're fair based on the crawler that we're running and the network topology that we've observed. It also appears that at least one of the other top 5 is running basically their version of a pool that they've already implemented. And I think they're taking advantage of the fact, again, this optimization that I described, where if you separate the client and the miner on separate machines, you can kind of optimize each for that specific task. And I think, I think that's what's happening. So there may be other things. I don't know what those are, though. I think like I said, I know hardware. I know there's some hardware acceleration happening. I strongly suspect there's also some pooling happening. Beyond that, though, I actually don't know. Maybe Lukash, Fabian, or Nicholas, if you guys have anything to add to that answer, feel free.
Well, it's not me. That's all I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely not me either.
Okay. Okay, the proof of sync work difficulty stuff. Again, there was another comment here. Maybe I'll just read it out. For the meaning of that log message, for every proof, take 2 SHA-256 of it and take the first 64 bits of the output as the hash difficulty value. The range will be inside 0 and 2 to the 64 minus 1. And the value should be uniformly distributed within this range. This hash difficulty value should be less than the current block's difficulty target. That line of the log just tells you that your generated proof has not met this requirement. Considering the weight is 1 over the difficulty target, it could be seen as how many mining attempts are needed on average before the miner will find a valid block. Damon commented, so you need to set the port as Fabian mentioned earlier. I think that's a good point. Thank you for that. Somebody else asked, so are there any updates on the mentioned code changes with respect to syncing? Has anything been done to spend less time in syncing and switch to the heavier chains faster?
I think, yeah, Nicholas and Lukash, I mean, I know there's some work on the serialization, deserialization, and some other optimizations. Maybe you guys want to discuss those things.
Well, some of that work is directed at general improvements to performance of the network, because once you have an async executor, then any other operation that gets faster makes other operations faster. So we're looking at any potential choke points and trying to get rid of any remaining, if there are any, blocking operations. Although the performance is really not that bad in terms of how the async stuff works. Well, we have serialization recently by doing some deferred deserialization and ahead of time serialization, and there's also a pending pull request for singles ahead of time serialization for propagated blocks, because right now they are serialized for every sent message. But other stuff like having more peers, which is also one of the proposals, could improve this, and that one change that I mentioned earlier with not discarding sync nodes before the minimum number of peers is attained can also improve this.
And
Thanks.
another question from the same person. I think we kind of answered this. Another question, any updates on code changes with respect to utilize CPU fully? This is a screenshot in mining status, and they put a screenshot here. I think we kind of covered that though already. Okay.
Yeah, I think we answered that. I mean, look, I think we're
Yeah.
going to continue to iterate towards making it better. Again, as Lukash mentioned, there's kind of some trade-offs. Just yeah, it's not as simple. It's not as simple as it might seem, I guess. Maybe there's something we're missing, and that's entirely possible. And I know there's a lot of very, very good developers and folks in the community here. And if this is something that you guys want to look at, and if you feel generous enough to donate to the community, that's obviously great. So you can submit a PR and do it. Of course, look, the incentives are also set up for if you see something that you think will give you an advantage and you run it yourself, then you can win some blocks. So I don't want to discourage you from doing that either, because that's kind of what proof of work is all about.
There's one extra point I would like to make here. Some of the cryptography that is involved in mining blocks is not possible to parallelize, potentially for security reasons, but this is just inherent to the cryptography that is in place. So from time to time, when you're mining, you could have a single core involved in some of the operations that are necessary. So it's not like you are even able to perform all of that stuff in parallel, because some of that cryptographic code depends on the ordering of operations, and it's like doing something like a domino effect in terms of arithmetic operations. So I remember having looked at some of that in snarkVM, and some of that is by design. So I wouldn't expect to be able to see 100% of all core utilization mining at all times by design.
Yeah, and I think this is also, we've talked about this a few times, that there's just some inherently serial operations, and there's some of these like cryptographic operations you specifically do not want to make too fast, otherwise it becomes insecure. And I think, not looking at the actual audience here, but if X, he's not in here, but there's a community member X Oranox or Zoranox or however you say that. He's made this observation where the clock speed is potentially a higher clock speed is potentially an advantage. Really, I think it kind of comes down to single core performance. It's a trade-off between fast single core performance versus like a lot of cores and being able to utilize them. I mean, this is like, it's not a simple optimization problem. I guess I just want to emphasize. There's a lot of trade-off space here, and again, there's some constraints around the cryptography and some other stuff. Quickly to answer the very last question, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say your name right. Hong Gotan, the last guy who posted in the channel. Yeah, if you create multiple wallets to take all top 100 in the leaderboard, that's fucked up. Don't do it. So number one, yeah, it's just don't do it because you're a jerk. Number two, if we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be much more rigorous with the KYC for the top 100, even than with the folks mining blocks regularly. And if we catch you, we're gonna redistribute all your rewards to the community. So you want to try that and give everyone an airdrop. If you feel generous, I mean, you should just save us all the time and just give everyone an airdrop. So don't try it. Thank you.
Good. Okay, another question. I know we've been answering some in the chat, but I think these weren't answered. So is it possible to mine Aleo from local IP addresses?
If I understand the question correctly, is it possible to mine from local IP? So I guess it's like, as opposed to a cloud, like some cloud provider. If that's what you're asking, then yes. I was running a miner on my home machine a while ago. I didn't. I think I found one block in the early period, like in the first 100, first 200. But you can run on a local machine. You don't have to run on a cloud server.
It says we have a team. We all have mined several blocks, and now we want to mine as one pool. Can we mine from the same machines to a different address together?
So if you're in a pool, and okay, from the network's perspective, if you're in a pool, it's going to look like one node, right? And then the way pools work is there's this concept of shares. Actually, let me post a link. By the way, if anyone wants to implement this, like I said, we have about 5 or more at this point ongoing efforts to get this, but more than happy to consider a grant for anybody who is interested in implementing something like this. So this is Stratum. This is sort of like the most common mechanism protocol for pooling. If anyone is interested in taking a stab at doing an implementation of this, we'll happily pay you a grant because I think the more of these out there, the better. So if that's of interest, DM me or DM Anthony. But yeah, I guess the answer to the question is, so from the network perspective, your pool is going to look just like one node. So you could mine it, the address of your miner is only going to be known by the pool operator, right? And then the pool operator is basically in charge of paying out shares based on the contributions of each individual miner in the pool. The short answer to your question is yes. You could use any address, any number of addresses you want inside of a pool, and it's really just up to the pool operator to figure out how they want to distribute the rewards among the pool.
And then the person also asked, when will software for pool development appear? I think we mentioned that it's top of our list, so pushing for that.
The better.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so SD said maybe we can think of a way of incentivizing people to run clients. Yeah, that's an interesting observation for sure.
Real quick, I guess Fabian, sorry, I mentioned, yeah, so I think it is interesting, and I think it's definitely something we'll consider, because I think, we did notice that this is an issue when everyone's running miners. It's harder for blocks to propagate, so there's a really good reason to want more clients. So I thank you for bringing that up. That's a good observation, and we're going to consider it. Fabian, do you want to just talk briefly about kind of what we've already done in order to try and improve block propagation through the network? Or do you want to comment on that? You don't have to, but if you have any comments on that, we're welcome.
Yeah, so far, really what we've done is attempt to just have larger machines in different geographical locations to kind of just propagate these blocks. We're trying to sort of map the network and figure out where most of our clients are, where is a good place that we might need more infrastructure to help propagate these blocks. Other than that, I don't think we have very much as far as what we've done so far, but we're working on a few things.
and actually, since this kind of returns back to the topic of CPU utilization. Interestingly, for anyone who's interested and you want to see something fully utilized on the CPU, we've actually noticed that some of these client nodes that we've given a relatively large amount of resources for actually get pinned fairly often, which I think means that there's like the network overhead is pretty significant, and so this is again one more reason to be careful if you're tweaking the minor threads versus the network threads. I'm not saying not to do it. I think there's plenty of optimizations to be made, but I think it's just the point is like don't underestimate the amount of work that your node has to do just to keep up with the blocks propagating throughout the network. Because we have observed that some client nodes that are relatively beefy, are fully utilized just doing that alone.
Okay, some of these were answered. Maybe I'll just run through them quick. So the mining pool program is ready. Can anyone use it to spin up their own pool? Yes. Okay. Some top miner running their own pool software, can they receive the top 100 reward? Yes. Any non-Aleo run pool can compete for the top 100 spot. Okay. Going back to the ideas for incentivizing client nodes, I think person said no. Idea directly reward uptime and number of peers distributed. Maybe. Okay, if a third-party pool ends up in the top 100, how will the KYC process work?
So again, like to the network, it's just going to look like a single operator. And frankly, like the KYC is not going to go down to the level of like what machines did you use to mine what blocks. So honestly, it will be the pool operator effectively who will KYC. And then look, if they're running a business or if they're running an operation in which they include other people besides themselves in the pool, theoretically they will have KYC requirements before they pay them, but that's their responsibility. So we will KYC the pool operator, and then the pool operator, again, ostensibly should be responsible for for handling whatever KYC requirements there are in whatever local jurisdiction that they operate. So that's how that's going to work. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and there was additional comment there I think they meant to add it on. They said if the pool owner also has their own mining operations. Yeah, so I think that applies. Okay. Are you planning to separate node and miner? What should node do? Syncing and generate Coinbase?
Yeah, that's sort of the plan right now, is I think we're going to try and have specifically when the node is like, while the pooling architecture is the node, like the network node, network facing node is doing the syncing and then generating the Coinbase. We have to experiment with, it might even make sense to even split it up into three. Basically, one node that only syncs, one node that only generates Coinbase or block templates, and then a bunch of miners that only mine. We have to experiment with that, though.
Okay, so Gordy said, can an operator be malicious?
Yes, an operator can be malicious. So I guess as pools get underway, we should probably come up with a disclaimer of like, if you're in a mining pool, like you're at the mercy of an operator, right? So make sure you understand who the operator is. This is one of the reasons why we want to offer our own pool up, and I'd like to think that we're not malicious or not going to be. We really don't have any incentive to be. So that's going to be an option for everybody. But in general, mining pool you have to trust a mining pool operator because all of this happens off, like the share accounting, how many contributions you've made, all happens entirely off chain. I don't know if anyone has ever used a mining pool on other protocols, but yeah, it's typically kind of an off chain process.
Okay, this one's directed at Damon. So it says, hey, Damon, if you remember, we talked about having a read-only shareable link to the Leo Playground. Is there any update in that direction? I think that Leo Playground repo is not open sourced. If we make it open source, maybe I can check it too and raise a PR. Right now, the link that we get is editable by anyone. And that was from King Super. I think that's in the context of we're actually working with King Super to launch some Leo programming contests, and I think this was an issue that we were trying to deal with.
Looks like Damon answered the question below.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay. Sorry, didn't see that. Okay, cool. Why Coinbase proof generated alone, not with other transactions inside block?
Well, right now, I mean, I guess theoretically you could use the RPC interface to create transactions, but basically every block being mined right now is empty. The thing about this architecture is whoever submits the transaction is going to generate the proof themselves. So this is not like if you imagine a world, this is actually different than like Ethereum, where if I send a transaction to an Ethereum node, I'm basically just signing a message, and the Ethereum node is processing that state transition, right? They are effectively running it. Whereas in the Zexi model, which is what we're running in, I'm generating the proof as the client. I'm submitting that proof to the network. All the network has to do is verify that proof is valid and then include it in the block. So they don't have to generate transactions. The miners don't have to generate any transactions themselves other than this single one. I don't know if that quite answers your question, but I guess the short. So I guess that's like, yeah. So that's the answer. And the one thing I will say, because you could think to yourself, wow, if there's a lot of transactions, that could be a bottleneck, just in the verification part. Actually, the verification of transaction proofs or of proofs, of these proofs, which are transactions, can be parallelized. So if you get 1,000 transactions, like you can parallelize all the verification. Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, they said they understand now, so thank you for that. Okay, going back to the mining pool question from the same individual who asked earlier about KYC, they said, I mean, if I understand correctly, one person can only KYC one address, but does that mean if I want to run a pool, I can't claim the rewards on my own address?
I see what you're saying. So if you want to both run a pool and run your own address, okay, so if you want to run a pool and run your own miner, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting edge case. My kind of intuition, and I'll think about it, but my intuition is that, yeah, you shouldn't be able to do that probably, because I'm assuming if you're running a pool, you're going to get rewards by being a pool operator. And it's maybe not fair to let you double dip in that way. But I acknowledge that this is kind of an interesting edge case. Like maybe you would just want to run a pool for the community just to help, because and you want to support the Aleo network, but you also want to kind of run your own thing on the side. Let me think about it. Maybe there's room for an exception there, but I don't want to promise anything. So let me just think about it. Thanks for raising that, though.
Okay. And then Grin, going back, I think, to the client nodes question. So how can another node generate Coinbase fully synced ledger need Coinbase or not?
Yeah, you do need a fully synced ledger. So again, this is why I think you do need a fully synced ledger. So it may or may not be advantageous to separate, to offload the work of only doing the Coinbase transaction to another actor. So again, this is something we have to experiment with. But I guess the short answer to your question is fully synced ledger is needed for the Coinbase transaction.
And then somebody said, set up a client node and have my own miner node connect to the client node via connect. Will that improve my win rate?
I definitely think it very likely could improve your utilization of your miner, and therefore I think potentially improve your win rate. I think this is we've observed some of this behavior. I mean, Fabian, you can comment, but I think we've kind of observed some people doing this in the network, and we can't associate. We've seen this architecture in the network topology, or like this kind of this topology as we've called the network, and I think that is what some people are doing. I can't comment on how successful it is because I don't know, but my hunch is that the less nodes a miner is connected to, the better off you are. but you do want the miner to make sure it's receiving the latest block. So this is, again, I think splitting the work between the client and the miner is a great, to me, it seems like a very promising direction. That's kind of a non-answer to your question, but my guess is it will improve your win rate.
Somebody said, guys, please don't forget to upload all calls and stand-ups on your official YouTube channel. We don't always have time to attend it. Thanks. Yes, I think you're probably, well, we have everything uploaded except for the call from yesterday. Don't know what's going on. I've tried to download the recording from our bot, and for some reason it's just there's one voice that's not downloading properly, and I'm not sure what's going on there. I tried for multiple hours last night and even this morning, but I'm working on it to see if I can figure it out. If this happens again, I might have to find another alternative for recording, but thank you for bringing that up. I'll try to get it there as soon as possible. Okay, how to connect to your own client. I think, yeah, so Alex, I think you just answered that. We have a connect option where you can specify a node to connect to. We can create some instructions. Okay, does it make sense for those that can't get blocks, let their address get mined by one of those top miners and split the share? I mean, that would be a win-win and no KYC issue. You get 500 first credits.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're like backing yourself into a pool in a weird kind of way. Not really, but it's like, yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, that's clever. No, I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I would rather people mine on their own because I think it's better from a security perspective. But I mean, I know that's something that you could do.
If I could comment on that, that sounds like straw mining, right? I don't think that. I mean, how are you going to compensate the miner for their processing power? They're probably just going to take some of the tokens from you. So, I mean,
well,
it doesn't
actually,
really...
I actually think the opposite might happen if you're the miner, right? Like, I'll say I've got a miner. I haven't found a block since 18K. I could just go, theoretically, if I knew who the top miner was, I could say, hey, mine my address, and and then we'll split the money or something. I could just take the money and not give it to them, right? Because I'm going to be the one who has to KYC and will get the money. So I honestly feel like for the miner who's doing it at the top, it's kind of risky, but yeah, I guess it's possible. Yeah, no, it's an interesting thought experiment. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping people from doing that. I think again, it's yeah, I think it's probably not, the value proposition for the individual is higher than for the miner. But my hope is we can get everything, the baseline performant enough that mining a block is achievable for everyone, at least one. And that's why the rewards curve is the way it is, where it's like if you even just get one, you're getting a what we consider to be the excluding the top 100, the majority of kind of the incentive.
And then on the connect option question, so how to prevent it from connecting to others when it receives more peers, since connect is only the initial connection. Afterwards, it would receive peers and try to connect to them unless you implement firewall rules to prevent that and only allow your miner to connect to your client. I
think that's what you'd have to do. I think it's it's a little more complicated than like just connecting to your client, because you'll still connect to others. So I think there's some other adjustments you'd have to make. Again, I think part of this architecture, like we'll have to do something similar as we create a pool. Like this will kind of be a similar type of architecture, and so once we get that kind of more sorted out, we'll release basically the way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. You want to prevent the miner from connecting to anyone else, because otherwise you lose the benefit. So yeah, you would have to do that.
Yeah. Thanks for confirming my thoughts. Okay. That's the end of the questions here. I know we have a minute left, so yeah. maybe we can wrap it up unless there's any final things that people want to mention or ask.
Guys, thanks a ton for being here. You know, I know there's been some frustrating moments for folks, you know, as they've gotten up and running. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I appreciate everyone's contributions, and I appreciate everyone being here. You know, again, I guess mainly thank you for coming and for contributing to our network. I mean, I think as hopefully you guys are starting to see, this is a pretty complex undertaking of something new and novel that we're very excited about its potential. Just beyond the mining, I think just the potential for having a blockchain that can enable, or a platform that can enable, you know, private smart contracts that is an incentive mechanism that is tailor-made to make hardware faster. Like that's the end of the day, like the main point of proof of succinct work is we want to get to a point where we have hardware acceleration for ZK snarks. And yeah, so I think, you know, the prospect of that is very exciting. It's going to enable a lot of stuff, but, you know, again, it's early days, even in just the testnet. I think, you know, it's only day 4, I think. So yeah, thanks for bearing with us. Appreciate all the feedback. We're going to work hard to integrate this, and appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And yeah, I guess our next call will be on Monday, the ZK Salon. So I'm sure we'll do another one of these similar types of sessions. So if you want to join that one, please feel free. And yeah, thank you very much for joining, and look forward to seeing all of you very soon. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.